All right, my son's having fun playing his video game in the living room, so if you hear that, hopefully you'll appreciate how cute it sounds, because I'm not going to go silence him to make this video, but I will show you a couple of really cool games. So there's another video I'm uploading that talks about how I've adjusted the deck based on War of the Spark. It's very minimal. Basically, Dovin out, Teferi Time Raveler in is it. But um, check out that video if you want to know the whys of it. Meanwhile, what I've got for you now is two really interesting games, super fun. Hopefully they come out. So today I've only played 3 games, I guess. So actually, but it was the first and the third that were the interesting one. I think the second one my opponent conceded really quickly or something. I'll just run through all 3 just in case. But let's take a look. I haven't checked the replays, so keep your fingers crossed. And if all works out well, you'll be in for a real treat. Now, I believe in this one, I had no forbid, and I had Dovin in that slot. After this game, I put forbid back in. It doesn't come up as far as I know, so I just mentioned that in case I bet and you notice a difference. That would be why. So in this game, I'm playing against Geist of St. Traff, and I've got this interesting start. I obviously want to get double blue for that mana drain, but I've got Crucible and a Tutor, so I decide I'm going to go this route, and I'm going to set myself up for Wasteland Recursion against my opponent's mana sources. Unfortunately, top deck's a Soul Ring, so I'm still going to make the play. But next turn I figure, so they're going to get their commander out, and I have to figure out how I want to deal with that. I probably play Polluted Delta and pass so that I can possibly mana drain into something, allowing them to develop their mana a little bit, but then follow it up with, I mean, honestly, like at this point, I might actually try to develop in order to get up to Breya so that I'm not getting my teeth kicked in by Geist of St. Traff since I can't do anything about it right now. So my opponent actually had time before I was going to be able to go on the strip mine plan, unless I started top decking all our artifact mana sources. But they don't want to stick around and see it. Perhaps they don't have a white mana here. That would totally change everything. I'd play Delta to get mana drain on board and then immediately start strip mining them after that. Either way, it's a wrap. That Soul Ring could have really messed things up for me, but no worries. All right, so I move into game 2, and this is the one that was much more interesting. This was against Narset, and I've got a pretty sweet hand here. So my opponent leads off with Steam Vents. I go ahead and just waste it right off the spot because they didn't have anything to do with mana on turn 1, so hopefully they won't have anything to do with mana on turn 1 again, and maybe they won't have anything to do with their mana on turn 2, which is what I'm hoping for. Looks good, so all right. I'm going to try to run out of Dynamo and see what happens. Hopefully no mana drain, right? And, oh, it sticks. Really nice. Well, maybe they destroy it here or something. We'll see. Instead, they just develop with the Talisman of Progress. So that is really lovely for me. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to copy Artifact, and if they kill the Dynamo in response, then I'll copy the Talisman. They don't. So I go ahead and get a second Dynamo and Spellseeker for a Mana Twist, a Mind Twist with Double Strand Dynamo. This Mind Twist is threatening that to go for the full hand immediately. My opponent on their turn plays Tezzeret into Grim Monolith so that they're going to be able to get their commander down. Clearly they're getting it out of their hand before I get their hand out of here. So, and I take a Wheel of Fortune, Counterspell, Temporal Mastery, and a Control Magic. Time Walk Wheel of Fortune Counterspell is phenomenal, and then the Control Magic, not too shabby. Anyway, my opponent here can easily play their Narset, however, with Tezzeret's fueling their mana, and they Flame Slash away my Spellseeker, so I can't attack their Tezzeret either. But they are empty-handed, and I've got Deluge, so I'm going to go ahead and Deluge, I believe. No. Okay, so I'm going to go for Breya right now and throw down a Jitte, equip a Thopter, kill the Tezzeret. Equip a Breya, kill the Tezzeret, and pass. Now my opponent attacks. So I do all that because I'm thinking, unless they hit the top card or in their attack step, when they swing in, they are going to get to make plays, but I couldn't have stopped it anyway. If I didn't kill Teferi, if I deluged, with the Teferi mana, they could have easily just replayed Narset. So doing it this way gets rid of Teferi's flexibility, and then theoretically it was going to cause them to attack in, but then I could block and kill Narset, and then they would be in a spot that was a lot better for me. Plus, maybe I have a couple counters on the Jitte. Instead, what happens is my opponent swings in, revealing Teferi Mage of Zalfir, which it cannot actually cast off of this because this is non-creature, a land, Lion's Eye Diamond, which they can't play because it says cast. Lion's Eye Diamond, which they can play, and a Cryptic, so they get to bounce Breya, which means they're going to hit me here and not kill their Narset and have another shot at it next turn. Plus, these are exiled, and the top two are irrelevant, but they also have drawn a card off Cryptic and a card for their draw steps. I don't know what's going on over there, but it's not good. Potentially, we'll see what happens. They get an Eye of Ramos. Okay, well, that's all right. I'm going to go ahead and kill their guy now, play my Breya, because with Cavern of Souls, I can't counter their commander on the way down. I'm not going to equip Jitte because I'd like to be able to sack. I've already seen a control magic. I certainly don't want to lose Breya to something like that, or Treachery, for example. Opponent just plays Narset and a land and passes, has one card in hand, and I top deck a Duretti, which is really nice. So we'll go ahead and get that on the board. Immediately, I'm going to equip a Thopter, attack with said Thopter. I check to make sure my mana is good here. Get the counters on the Jitte. Kill their Eye of Ramos, which is one mana, but it can sack to produce another blue, so that's like killing 2 mana potentially. I move the I move the Jitte over to the Thopter. So this way, if my opponent has removal for either creature but not both, then I can block and kill their Narset, which is what I need to have happen. Now I could Cryptic pre-combat in order to tap their Narset, but it's a delaying tactic. It's not that great. I'd rather save Cryptic so that if they attack and they flip 4 cards and say one of them is severely relevant, like let's say one of the cards they reveal is like Future Sight or something, I want to be able to counter it on the way down because I can still counter the cards that they reveal. All right, so my opponent pre-combat Portent, so they're going to set up, if they like their 3 cards, they're going to be able to play them all with Narset. They target themselves. If they don't like their 3 cards, they can shuffle and potentially have better options. So my opponent chooses not to shuffle, so we'll see what they reveal here. And it is, pause, very painful for me. They get a Shivan Reef, which I can play, Order of Succession, which is a control magic, so not that big of a deal to me. But they get a Time Spiral and a Memory Lapse. So if they go Time Spiral for 0 and I Cryptic, they can just Memory Lapse, and so the Cryptic's no good here. And they're going to push the Time Spiral no matter what I do. So this is really disappointing. But I do at least get to block and kill Narset, so I do that. Opponent plays Order, stealing my Thopter, but of course they don't get the Jitte, so I just immediately kill my Thopter in response to Time Spiral, and I have to just let it resolve, because if I spent the mana there, then I can't do anything after combat. And I still have to remember there's a Memory Lapse hiding over here, so I don't want to have to play into Memory Lapse, so I want to avoid impulsing, because then my opponent gets a free Memory Lapse off. But I didn't spend my mana because, at the very least, if my opponent, one of my again, if they drew Treachery or Control Magic, or for example, if I'd drawn 2 sets of counterspells, like I have a Muddle here, so what if I'd drawn a Muddle, the Mixture, and a counterspell? Well, then I might be able to do something, because I could counter and then counter after the Memory Lapse. So I sit on it, nothing interesting happens. I suppose I could have tried a Cryptic there, but nah, tapping out didn't make any sense. They play Breya. I just let it happen. Unfortunately, they get a Tezzeret down, but I have Spellseeker again, uncounterable into Mind Twist right off of this tons of mana from the Thran Dynamos. Opponent loses their hand a second time to a Spellseeker Mind Twist. I go ahead and Crucible, play an Expedition map, sack. I'm going to pause. Play an Expedition map, and then with a little bit of hesitation, sack the map to Duretti in order to kill I've killed their Grim Monolith, and I kill their Lion's Eye Diamond. And the reason that I do that, as much as it sucks, incidentally, by the way, my opponent has an Ancestral Vision with 3 counters on it, because that was one of the cards they drew. Anyway, so the reason that I do that, they can recover from Mind Twist is what I'm getting at. But the reason I kill the map is that I feel like it sucks because I have a Crucible, and I'd really like to map and get this Cavern of Souls off the board and then start the Strip Mine plan. But I didn't want to kill 3 mana in order to kill, what was it, a Lion's Eye Diamond? And I didn't want to kill the Jitte because I feel like the Jitte on the Spellseeker allows me to threaten Tezzeret very quickly, and that's important. I need to get Tezzeret out. Tezzeret's going to produce a ton of mana for them as well. So Yeah, it was a little bit of a bummer, but then again, if I do get a chance to Yawgmoth's Will, the Expedition map will is an easy card to replay later. So that's kind of what I was thinking there. All right, so my opponent's draw for the turn is just more mana, so they uh, take a counter off their Ancestral Vision during an upkeep and replay Narset, and then use Tezzeret to fetch up Assault Monolith. So, all right, at the end of their turn, now I'm getting Impulse. Of course, they can't play, and I find a Mystical Tutor. They can't play the Memory Lapse anymore. It was just that one turn. All right, so during my upkeep, I'm going to Mystical Tutor for Yawgmoth's Will. I then equip Spellseeker, pump it, and then Toxic Deluge for 2, play a Kaya, attack Tezzeret for 1, get more counters on the Jitte, and then this was a little tricky. Um, but using the remaining mana that I have, I actually Cavern of Souls a Snapcaster into play, create a construct with the ready, use Snapcaster to Demonic Tutor, and then with the last on my mana, I Demonic Tutor for Force of Will. So I Force of Will now up. I have a really good board. I cannot Force of Will Narset, but I'm holding Yogg Will, Force of Will, and a blue card as my last 3 cards. So what that means is that I'm almost certain to resolve Yawgmoth's Will next turn, and since I assume the play for the turn is going to be to recast Narset, I'm just going to kill it with Toxic Deluge for I believe that's the 3rd time this game, because I did one pre-Time Spiral and then that should do it. So we'll see. All right, so my opponent is um, trying to figure out what to do with their mana. They drew extra land, so they're going to go ahead and Tezzeret in order to pump additional mana out there, and then get rolling with Narset. And on my turn, I'm able to kill the Basalt Monolith, fragmentize away the other card, attack Tezzeret, pump my guy, kill Tezzeret, and then Yawgmoth's Will re-deluge, keeping my Spellseeker for the 2nd time. Now I get to map. I'm going to go ahead and map into a Strip Mine here. I also have 2 mana floating. I'm going to sit on Force of Will, of course, and I'm going to most likely Mystical Impulse into something here, but we never find out what, because at this point, my opponent concedes the game. Yawgmoth's Will running. No, no doubt this game was over, but the fact that I was going to be able to get Strip Mine here, play the Strip Mine, and then Strip Mine them during their upkeep, killing the Cavern of Souls, putting them in a situation where they only got 6 mana left, and a commander that costs, at this point I believe it costs 12. Um, yeah, game over, and they're going to draw a bunch of expensive cards, most likely, because, well, that's what you do in an R-set deck, play a bunch of expensive cards, and so most likely they're just not in a great position here. So the scoop is warranted, especially with Kaya running. Anytime they draw a counter spell, they're just going to get Kaya. Now the only reason they might not scoop is that they had an Ancestral Vision on 2, and on their next turn it was going to tick down to 1. So if I were them, maybe stick around long enough to see that, but yeah, I don't blame them either. All right, so that was it for game 2. I thought that was really interesting game, honestly, just the way that it worked out with having to kill Narset so many times. And then I had this game against Deathmask Duplicant, which I also think was a really interesting game. And in this game, my opponent's playing the Mimeoplasm, and I keep a hand on the basis of
Dad,
actually running out. One moment, son.
Dad,
Actually, one moment, son.
I found Death Beast.
All right, why don't you go defeat that Death Beast? Excuse me. So,
So
uh,
he always kills
Thomas,
me.
Tom, I'll come help you in a moment, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. So I kept it on the strength of being able to go, well, first of all, having a mana crypt, and then being able to draw 2 cards off a clamped mage. And it's a bummer because usually you want to get an extra card from your graveyard with Snapcaster, but if I'm not getting a Snapcaster plus a card, instead I'm getting a card plus a card, that's probably acceptable. And I really need, I don't want to, you don't mulligan mana crypt if you can help it. So, all right, let's see if we can find some mana here. Nope. Well, that could be a problem. My opponent's accelerating, and problem solved. Got a Scalding Current. All right, so I'm in pretty good shape now. And actually missing the land drop just meant that I could tithe. Opponent plays Thief of Sanity here, so I'm going to go ahead and tithe. Not going to worry too much about that. Grab a blue source and a plateau. Blue source in case I want to stand up Cryptic Command. But I said, no, the play is treachery. Oh, thought scour. Thank goodness I wasn't like spell pierce there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and clamp it and sit on double blue with a muddled mixture. And I'm feeling pretty good here. But my opponent thought scoured away a Muldrifter and a Winnower, which means when they play the Mimeoplasm here, it actually clones the Void Winnower, and now I cannot cast even uh, I cannot cast spells with even mana costs, which means I cannot cryptic that away, and I can transmute muddle for a 2-drop that I can't cast. This is problematic. I also cannot play my commander. And this is 13 points of power that's going to beat me down while locking me out. This is a bad situation. I'm also at 9 because I've lost a lot of mana crypt flips, and it's going to continue. So I draw an Enlightened Tutor, but I can at least play Gilded Lotus and this Fountain. So what is the game plan? If you're me, what are you thinking that you need to do here? I'll explain it in a moment, but I recommend, if you haven't already deduced what I'm hoping happens based on my hand, take a moment to think about it. Anyway, my opponent runs out Baleful Strix, and I'm really like, please don't Swords to Plowshares my Thief of Sanity or something. Well, they can't STP it, but like, don't. I don't know. I don't know. I just obviously I just don't want them to interact with my board. I'm in enough trouble, and I'm worried that if I take a 13-point hit here with a crypt running, I could just lose to crypt damage, even if I can find a way to solve the Winnower problem. So keep your fingers crossed. Opponent then plays Buried Alive, and they go get Jin Gatoxis and Wonder and Shieldred. So this thing now flies. Thankfully, their Thief also flies. So I get to draw 2 cards, and yay, I get a Swords to Plowshares. I don't plow the Winnower. I actually plow the creature, the 1/1 who drew him a card, the Baleful Strix, and Enlightened Tutors. So if you didn't see it, ask yourself what I tutored for and why I didn't plow. This is your last chance, and then we'll continue with the game, and we'll find out if you have figured out what my game plan was. And let's hope my opponent doesn't have Force of Will, right? All right, so here we go. I got a Winter Orb, and my plan is Yogg will play a land from the graveyard, Treachery the Winnower, with the Treachery's ability on the stack, tap some extra mana, make sure I get white and blue here because I still have a will running. So the idea was, the game plan was, Yogg will Treachery will get around Void Winnower, and then I lock my opponent out under their own card. So I Winter Orb them with the orb that I fetched, and now I've got Cryptic and Muddle guarding my board, and my opponent can't play 2 drops, or 4 drops, or 6 drops, any of that. So pretty tough for my opponent, which means no Abrupt Decay, no Assassin's Trophy, right? Nothing like that. And with that, so outside of like Crows and Grip or something, I feel like I'm in pretty good shape. And even if my opponent did have, well, that's not necessarily true. So if my opponent had Crows and Grip specifically, then this whole play falls apart and I probably lose the game. But it's because I didn't actually play Jace this turn. Had I played Jace this turn, then even if my opponent had Crows and Grip on Treachery, I would be able to just bounce it back to my hand with a Jace. So the game actually went one more turn. I actually I had actually Enlightened Tutor a second time, which you can't see, which you may not have seen. But the card I went and got was Copy Artifact. So on my next turn, I hit him for 13. Copy the Gilded Lotus, use that new copy to play a Jace, and then Jace, so that even if my opponent had removal that I couldn't deal with, that happened to cost 3 or 1 or like Nature's Claim or something like that, then I have a Jace on board, and it would be really tough for my opponent to actually, like, I think I played Jace and Breya, so that way my opponent, they'd have to attack in, I'd chump block, and then I'd just bounce the Void Winnower, and I'd still have control of this game. So I thought that was just a really cool game because my opponent Void Winnower cheated a Void Winnower effect out on me, and I managed, after a Thief of Sanity, and I managed to put together a win, and I felt pretty good about that. So hopefully you enjoyed watching it. Um, Again, I'll try to produce some more videos, but look for the one where I discuss War of the Spark. If that's the sort of thing you like, it's all talk. It's not going to be in the Commanders section. I'll put it in my other section, but I like to do that whenever a new set comes out, if the set's interesting, and War of the Spark is definitely interesting. So thank you very much for watching, though, and I will see you next time.